Western Book of the Dead, Part 7. I'm the Christian whistleblower, Jeffrey Daugherty, and this is a discussion of the book that is designed to teach you how to navigate the afterlife plane, which is known as the labyrinth. Of all the things that we learn about in this life, of all the things that we talk about in this life, of all the things that we consider in this life, it's very curious to me that almost none of us ever think about what we're going to do when we leave this life. We never think about how we're going to act when we leave this life. We never think about what we're going to do when we leave this life. And our religious paradigms intentionally make us this way because the extent of our ignorance in what to do after this life increases their ability to keep us within the soul farms, within the recycling matrix, and greatly diminishes our chance to achieve any sovereignty after death and to have no more sovereignty after death than we had in life. So the goal here is to teach you, to show you, to explain to you, and to help you, to give you the information to discover how you can have sovereignty in the afterlife, how you can indeed learn how to navigate the post-life labyrinth. It's called the American Book of the Dead, but we call it the Western Book of the Dead because it really talks about and discusses more than just the American thought, but it's more Western thought, as it were. So let's take a look into what the book says today. And let's begin to understand what's going on. And they're talking about labyrinth guides. The guide may, through your tendency to convert images to the ordinary and familiar, take many forms and has the specific function of causing and continuing the process of liberation and awakening through a series of miracles or coincidental control. The coincidence control is also called the grace of the guide and includes all coincidences, like them or not, appreciated or not, in and out of awareness. Any other function or attribute of the guide is strictly imaginary. To initiate and run the process of liberation, however, one must specifically ask. So we have to ask some specific questions of a guide in order to find our way out. You might now see the sense of treating everyone and everything as a manifestation of God, as the mystics have said for centuries, including your own essential self, that selfness which resides deeply beyond ego, consciousness, and action, none of which are actually yours or ever were yours in the sense of ownership, but belonging entirely to the world. You, the real you, exists solely as a source of attention and presence, beyond all action and involvement with the turbulent flow of biological life, itself just a secondary manifestation of localized field effect probability and interdeterminacy all around you. The sure way to recognize the macro dimensions of the labyrinth is to assume that you are always in them at any moment, even at this very moment. The way to learn how to navigate the labyrinth after death is to assume that you are in it, and in it even now. In this example, you would look at me and say, oh, is this my guide? I would look in the chat room and say, oh, is one of these people my guide? And I would open myself to information from you and evaluate it based upon what input I receive. So we need to learn how to not be in dominion over everything, but to be in partnership with everything, to listen, to observe, and to look at everything, to assume at any and every moment we are always in the labyrinth. This conversation, which you seem to me to be perceiving as a message in some sort of written form, it's obvious that you've converted my presence to a safer, more familiar perceptual and experiential symbology, always acting as if in the macro dimensions of the labyrinth, assuming that your senses are deceiving you. will give you the necessary edge to achieve your liberation from the human biological framework of reality perception. So not only do you listen to everything, but you take everything with the proverbial grain of salt. Is this person, is this thing, is this situation trying to take advantage of me? Is it trying to deceive me and lead me to someplace that I don't want to go? And in this world, the answer is usually yes. How interesting that is, because in the next world, the answer is usually yes as well. Your experience of the macro dimensions can be altered by the powerful habit to be human, think as a human, perceive as a human, and most unfortunately, at least in the macro dimensional sense, to react as a human, making the most extraordinary events and objects appear as if a normal human experience. One thing that we don't understand is because most of us haven't gained the proficiency in this life yet to be able to proficiently operate within the astral realm, is you don't understand or realize the tremendous power of a human body when in spiritual dimensions. You don't understand the power of having a human body when you're in the astral realm, and not understanding the power of a human body makes you inappreciative to the state of not having one when you don't. Some of you won't be able to get that yet, but that's okay. That's just the way it is. The reality of the macro-dimensional state depends on how much attention you can bring to bear on the actual present. If you've learned to function minimally, with a sort of dim, permanent inattention punctuated only by occasional shock, you're not very likely to notice the subtle differences between organic and macro-dimensional domains. If you're not living, if you don't understand the fullness of life now, if you're not living intimately and intensely within each moment, if you don't understand the subtleties and the differences, if you don't understand that you're living in a world of frequency, if you don't understand that you're a fleshly body having a spiritual experience, if you don't get the wonder or the depth of the world, you won't notice the difference when you get into the labyrinth. It's not the type or character of the experience that differentiates the human dimension from the macro dimensions, but the quality of the experience, which is dependent upon the quality and the intensity of attention. You have to begin to notice things. To be on the safe side, always assume that you are presently in the macro-dimensional domains and that your presumptions and assumptions about yourself and your environment, especially if they seem to conform to the standard human worldview, are completely wrong. If you're counting on getting through the macro dimensions without any effort to learn how to deal effectively within the experience, good luck, and we'll see you back here again. If you think that you can just die and go on and go to where you're supposed to be, you better buy the timeshare. If you think that you can die and just go along your way and everything's going to be fine, buy the timeshare. Because if you don't put forth effort in the here and now, you're not going to be successful in the then and there. You just won't. You just won't. Now the author wants to give us a few examples, a few exercises that we can do. Mostly these exercises deal with the things we just can't allow to continue unabated in our deepest selves if we're to continue on an upward evolutionary spiral. They deal with anger, jealousy, hunger, and other masquerades for fear. We can rid ourselves of any such hooks we might have developed in our human experience and involvement with bodies and other biological forms as well. These hooks can really foul us up in the macro dimensions. Two kinds of exercises called meditations deal with these aspects of the problem. Type 1 meditation is designed to help you discover your essential self, to dig down past all the things you now identify as yourself, and to keep on digging down until you find the self without qualities. This is something called the not that, not that, not that meditation. You should be able to correctly identify the void without qualities or clear light as your deepest, most real self. Many techniques exist to do this. It's by far the most popular since it goes right out the top. This is some deep stuff. Type 2 meditation deals primarily with the phenomena, the rolling thunder, bells, trumpeting, and the general mayhem, which seems to occur only during transitional phases. Several forms of negative reinforcement techniques and programmed responses to various chambers are an excellent safety measure against accidental rebirth. Thanks to space-age technology of reading aloud, we now have the means to meta-program the essential self against negative rebirths. If you experience the macro-dimensional domains as if with familiar relations, friends, or relatives, common symbols of organic life as you know it, then there's going to be form changes, phase changes, reality changes, all of which could be transcendental if you're able to go beyond human perceptual expectations. Then there's type 3 meditations, which belong to the class of phenomenal meditations, not only transcendent, but active. This is really, really deep stuff. Lots and lots of deep stuff. And it almost makes you wonder how far you can go in a single reading, because a lot of you are thinking, what is this guy even talking about? If we don't understand our world in a very, very deep and experiential way, the world we're living in now, we're lost. Almost literally when it comes to the afterlife world. We can't continue to be people that watch television, people that, I want to just share with you one of the biggest problems that people have, and one of the biggest reasons you'll probably get caught in the labyrinth. And you'll probably be coming back even though you don't want to, and you probably won't be able to manifest your own destiny after you die. And here's the habit that will probably sink most of you. Just trying to be honest with you. Most of you, as soon as you wake up in the morning, as soon as you come home from work, as soon as you enter into your house, the first thing you do is turn on a television or turn on the radio, or some of you even turn on YouTube, so that there's always something blathering and playing. There's always some white noise going on in your background. Or you, as soon as you get in your car, the first thing you do is turn on the stereo. Some of you even go to sleep watching the television or watching or listening to a radio. That's a terrible habit. It's a habit that almost guarantees that you will come back, that you will not have sovereignty in the afterlife. Because most of you avoid silence as if it were a plague. Most of you avoid silence as if it were something to be feared, because most of you do not want to have any silence in your life, because it forces you to think, to consider, to take stock. You're at work and they're playing background music. You get in your car and you turn on the radio. You go in your house and the first thing you do, you set down your keys and you pick up the remote and turn it on. If you're going to sleep with a TV playing, stop doing it. In fact, take the TV out of your bedroom. If you're going to sleep with the radio playing, stop doing it. Take it out of your bedroom. Don't do it, because it deadens your senses. It allows you to never deal with silence and to become contemplative. I'm at the opposite end of that spectrum, and that's probably why I'll never be in another serious live-in relationship again, because there is no way that I can stand being with a person that constantly has background music going, that walks around their house with the TV blaring or the radio blaring. I have to have silence. And the reason I have to have silence is so I can contemplate and think. But most people, and I'll just say this because I know you don't like it, most people don't want to have silence because they're not comfortable with themselves. They're not comfortable with having to actually be alone and dealing with no sensory input. You feel alone, you feel scared, you feel uncomfortable. And when you practice the discipline of being in silence, it allows your subtle self to be heard. How can you ever listen to your higher self? How can you ever listen to the still small voice of your higher self or of the divine when you are always listening to some kind of noise? And we know, of course, the things that are being broadcast in media. Do you really want to go to sleep in a time where you and put yourself in a place where you're susceptible to input? Do you really want to turn your mind over to a television, a radio? No, you don't. These are the things that we're talking about. These are the things that we're trying to get you to understand, to begin to take control and to actively live and to actively exist within your mental space. That's why deprivation chambers are so effective for meditative technique, because it strips away all of the extraneous. And deprivation chambers are probably an excellent preparation for navigating the afterlife labyrinth. Tiffany, personally, I would not listen to binaural beats as I go to sleep. I would listen to them maybe during naps or something, but not when I'm going to sleep. That's just me. I don't want to have programming of any type going almost straight into my subconscious, but that's just me. Anna, what do you do? I mean, you have to ask yourself, are you willing to change that? Because you can if you want to, but it may not be easy. And I'll make a statement that might seem a little self-serving, but I think it's true. The degree to which someone is comfortable with silence is a good measure of their spiritual maturity. Maybe not 100%, but pretty doggone close, I think. So if you want to learn to navigate the after-death world, you have to learn to do things differently. You have to be willing to do things differently. You have to be willing to become more active, more involved, more deliberate. More deliberate in your everyday life and living. I don't think you can say enough about, you're going straight to your subconscious if you're falling asleep to the television. That's exactly right. And do you really want to go to sleep with the media having a pipeline directly into your subconscious? I don't think you do. I don't think you do. I really don't think you do. And I hope that you are researching or developing lists of your gods. And I hope that you're looking up those gods and seeing how to pronounce their name and seeing what they're for. If you want to be involved in this, we're not trying to kill a god. We're not trying to destroy a god. We're just trying to evict one. We're just trying to evict one that has proven himself unworthy of continuing as the husbandman of the vineyard. That's all. But we need supernatural help to do it. And we need to look for help in this endeavor. Yes, if your ancestral gods are into blood sacrifice, I would look for some other ones that resonate with you. So there you go. Becoming more deliberate in your living, becoming more active in your living, not just existing, but living consciously, living actively, and living in the moment. These are things we need to learn to do, and we need to ask ourselves, am I in the macro dimension right now? Is this microphone looking to say something to me? Is this computer saying something to me? Is it trying to deceive me? What about this glass? Is this glass trying to deceive me? What am I doing here in right now? What's actually happening right here and right now? Am I awake or am I dreaming? And am I doing something right now that is of my own volition, or am I merely following a path that is chosen for me by others? Ooh, that's powerful. Am I doing something? Am I doing what I'm doing right now because I want to be doing it? Or am I doing it because I don't really have any options? It's being dictated to me. And do I like that? And what am I going to do about it? Who was it that just Anna said, I hate my life. All I do is work. Well, it doesn't sound like you are determining your own destiny, Anna. Sounds like someone else is determining your destiny. What do you want to do about it? Jen, what do you mean you don't know where to look? Look up the gods of the place that your people are from. And what can I do to be more? There's a way of life that's called being at effect. And there's a way of life that's called being at cause. Folks, I have to say this, I'm sorry, but that's an excuse in my mind. I don't know where to look. Do you know where your people are from? Can you find out? Yes. Can you look on a map and tell what those countries are and the countries around it are? Yes. Can you go on Google and put in gods of and put in the country's name? Yes, you can. So don't tell me you can't do it or it's too hard. If you can find this channel, you can do that. Now, that's another story entirely, Jen. You look it up, it wasn't finding anything that resonated. Okay. That's a different story. If you look at your indigenous, the place you're from, and you don't find any resonance, then ask where you do have residence. See where you do have residence. Well, Jen, you could always pull up a map of Western Europe, Northwest Europe, and just look at the countries and Google the gods for those countries and see if anything. What if you're adopted? Ay, ay, ay. Anyway. Anyway. There you go. I decided I like Odin. Okay. There you go. Very, very interesting. Very, very powerful. Are you in a dream right now? Are you awake right now? Are you asleep right now? Is this real or am I dreaming? Who are my gods? And what do they mean with me? What do they mean to me? Does a fan make any? A fan does not put off any music or words or anything like that. Fans are fine. Well, there you go, folks. There you go, folks. There you go, folks. A time for pondering, a time for introspection, a time for getting back to the roots and back to the basics. Know who you are, know what you are, know where you want to go, know where you want to be, live with intention, live tuned in, live alive, live real, live turned in to the moment. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. This has been the Gospel Truth Program. And we're not talking about praying to anyone. It's almost good that it makes some of you uncomfortable because it makes you think and makes you reason out things that you have not pondered before. Good luck. Good luck. And it's a great exercise. It's a great time to be alive. And it is exciting to be here and now. Stay fearless, stay powerful, and stay tuned in.